Voices serves as the megaphone for individuals who have endured transformational change. By highlighting trials and triumphs, our desire is to create a safe space for pivotal conversations, which in turn will deepen the story and provoke hope for you, our listeners. As you may know, change is never easy, but it is inevitable. You are not alone in what you're facing. Your transformation is possible, purposeful, and now. And here's Ryann Wiggum, founder and managing director of New You, with this week's guest.
Welcome to another edition of New Voices. My name is Ryann Wiggum, and I am the managing director of New You, as well as your host of New Voices. We're so excited. We have a wonderful young founder with us today. She is an amazing woman doing great things here in the community of Tulsa. She's also expanding her campaign around the country. She is always has this warm smile and presence when we see her. She is a champion in the sobriety community, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. She is a thought leader. She is a very detail-oriented individual. She likes to get her I's dotted and her T's crossed. And so I'm really excited to bring her here and for her to meet you all and for you to meet her. I want you to sit back and listen to the wonderful story of the founder of RYS, Miss Ryann Cooke. Welcome, Ryann.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, this is well overdue.
Yeah.
You were here when Dr. Montana Kane was here, and you captured some social media and whatnot for her. And we'll talk a little about your influencer campaign that you do.
Okay.
But I want to start in the beginning. So let's just hear the Ryann Cooke story. Like, where did this all start? Just walk us through your timeline real quick.
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from DC.
All right, 202, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chocolate City.
Chocolate City.
And I moved to Tulsa last year.
Okay.
June 2022.
Okay.
June 2020. Sorry. And I moved here through Tulsa Remote, and I have been here it's been a year now.
Okay.
And I originally came doing just some admin work and just trying to figure out like, hey, I've never lived anywhere else other than DC. So let me just see how Tulsa, Oklahoma is. And before moving here, I was kind of scared because, like I said, I've never lived anywhere else. And so I landed here and gained community, met so many amazing people, have done so many different things that I never thought I would do. And I'm still here for another year. So, I guess is that kind of how.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So let's go back. And I'm kind of familiar with these DC streets. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. What part of DC you from?
I'm from Northeast DC, which is actually kind of like maybe like heart of DC, close to Howard, close to the Union Station.
Dope.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with 14th and U.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's where I hang out, right?
Yeah.
And so we used to go down there to DC Footwear, and we used to go to JoJo's.
Oh, the jazz club.
Yeah, the little jazz club.
I love that spot.
Yeah. So I would frequent 14th and U quite often.
Yeah.
Also, I stole my wife from DC.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She was in DC as a deputy chief of DC Public Schools when I met her.
I went to DCPS too. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so I'm very familiar with those DC streets.
Yeah.
And the good times in the culture there, the Black culture there.
Yeah.
The celebration of Black culture in DC that is palpable. And I didn't get it in Pittsburgh. So spending time in DC was always fruitful for me while I was there.
Yeah.
So when you're coming out of DC, where'd you go to school? College?
I went to a community college in Silver Spring, Maryland called Montgomery College, and I thought I wanted to be a nurse. So I was doing like requisites for the nursing program. I worked in the NICU. So I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. I applied to UDC's University of District of Columbia nursing program. And then I changed my mind at the last minute. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. So, yeah.
Okay. And then post that program, that decision, where did it lead you to?
I did some. I've always done like social media stuff, like influencer type stuff.
Okay, we can get into that early then.
Yeah,
let's go there.
But I didn't have it as like a full-time thing. Like I wasn't doing it full-time. It was just like something that I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And so I worked for a healthcare consulting company doing like project coordinating. I worked doing some social media stuff for them, building like learning courses online and stuff. And it was kind of hard to like make the decision to not be a nurse because it was like something that was just like something I wanted to do for so long. And then like deciding like, I'm going to quit this. I don't want to do it anymore was like a big kind of decision for me.
Yeah.
But like the other side was like remote work and it was more like creative and I felt a little bit more free. So yeah.
Okay. And so how did you get into the social media influencing space? What kind of led to that? And then how did you start to build your chops in that space?
Well, I think I have like a really warm, bubbly personality.
You do, yeah.
So I was like kind of just sharing things online, like especially when COVID happened, I would bike a lot.
Yeah.
I grew up biking with my dad. So it was just like when I had got my own like cool bike, I just started posting it more online. Like I would ride through the trails and like record myself doing that. I made like an ebook for my friends because they were like interested in biking. There were so many questions. And so I just kind of just started sharing my journey of biking online. That ended me getting like a biking sponsorship. So I got some like free clothes sent to me.
Okay.
I was on the Fuji website. So I just had always been interested in doing stuff like that.
Okay. And then you started to take that to another level with like, also you're learning how to skateboard. It looks like.
Longboard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what kind of led to that longboarding?
Here in Tulsa, there was a guy, I think it was like it may have been Juneteenth weekend. And he was like on this longboard and I asked him like, hey, can I get on your longboard? And he's like, yeah. And then I really enjoyed it. And I love doing anything outside.
Outdoors,
I just love to do.
Okay.
And so I had like asked him if I could get on and he said yes. And then I ended up buying my own longboard that weekend.
Oh, wow.
And had just been like teaching myself how to do it, going to skate parks here in Tulsa. So I had never knew how to do it before. And now I feel like, I can do this now.
Okay, good. And then last year we all went to, Tulsa Remote has this wonderful float trip that they do every year. And so we ran into each other at the float trip down Tahlequah River.
Yeah.
Or the river in Tahlequah. And that was a vibe.
That was nice.
We had a really good time.
It was great. Yeah.
Just kind of going down the river, a bunch of groups of people. And so, you said you're an outdoors person. What do you think kind of made that come about? Or what led to that, you being so outdoorsy?
It's so healing for me. I love being outside. Like, I know, like, if I have a bad day or something, like, I go outside, I feel so much better. And also, my dad, he was, like, a big outdoor person, too.
There you go. Yeah.
So, growing up, he always took me to, like, Rock Creek Park and these parks in Maryland. And we would ride our bikes. And it was, like, me and him time, because my sister wasn't really into it. So, and, like, I was the kid that you had to, like, pull inside when the street lights came on.
Same here.
I love to be outside all day long. So it just kind of has just stuck with me. And vitamin D is healing, the sun's healing. And so I love to be outside.
And it really speaks to the power of exposure, right? Because like you said, your dad exposed you to it. And it's something a way that you all bonded, right? And so when we limit what we're exposed to, we don't even afford ourselves the opportunity to grow in these variety of ways, right? If you only do the 5 things, you go, these are 5 things I know how to do, right? But what about the 55 other things that you're leaving on the table, right? And so I was the same kid, though, in terms of coming in the house. I mean, I would, in the summertime, I'm out the door 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm coming home 11 o'clock at night. My mom's like, you ain't ate nothing. Like, where you been?
Exactly.
Who you been with?
Right. Smelling like outside.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going for it. Right.
Yeah.
But once again, it goes to exposure. Like I grew up fishing every weekend with my dad. So we would go fishing and He wasn't a hunter, but he definitely is an avid fisherman. And we would do, I played all the sports, and, my dad is a sports guy. So he didn't play them, but he watches them, understands them. And so it was all very much about what I was exposed to. Right. And so I think that's great to have that exposure. So you've been kind of leading this or championing this idea of sobriety.
Yeah.
Right. And I just, first of all, want to give you your flowers. Like, I am really impressed with your candor about this sobriety journey and your ability to to be unashamed about any of it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many people who try to hide proclivities or anything that we've kind of like had to endure or overcome. But for you to like, nope, I'm owning it. Like, listen, I got myself, I had to check myself, and I am now becoming who I want to be intentionally. And I'm not only going to do that, but I'm not going to do it privately. I'm going to do it publicly.
Yeah.
Right. And that audacity is necessary, especially in our communities where champions tend to look like sports athletes. Right. We put these people up as figureheads of champions, not necessarily people who have won the championship of life. Right. And so I want to give you your flowers now for that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that though. What kind of was leading to the spiral down? And then what kind of was the impetus for you to say, you know what, I got to get this in check. Let's right this wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I think so. DC is a big boozy culture.
It is.
Happy hours, bottomless mimosas, day parties, brunch, and
rooftops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And young DC girl growing up in my early 20s, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this every weekend and not really face anything that's actually going on in my life. But I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go to happy hours. I'll just go to brunch. I'll just go party. I'll just go to these kickbacks and not really face anything that I was actually going through. And I think that, especially in the Black community, we don't talk about if something is actually wrong with us. We don't even I feel like I didn't really know how to say I had a problem. I didn't even know it was necessarily a problem.
Wow.
Until I was realizing blacking out and, not really showing up as my best self for work the next day because I'm hungover, not having genuine connections with people. A lot of my friendships were based and surrounded around alcohol.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And partying.
Yep.
And we're all kind of just okay, yeah, YOLO, live, all that sort of stuff. And then it just caught up to me.
Yeah.
And it started making me feel miserable. And it was it wasn't fun for me anymore. And I realized a lot of my sadness and stuff was just kind of surrounded around drinking and just wasn't really making the best decisions. And sorry, what was that other question?
Yeah. So what led to the spiral, and then where did you realize okay, I got to do something about this?
Yeah. So I was 25 and my last day drinking was just I was just sad and miserable, and I just wasn't feeling the best about myself. I think I just was just really depressed and just hiding it. And so my therapist, actually, she was the one that said hey, I think you need to go to sober meetings so that you can meet other sober people. And I just thought she was crazy. I really thought
I'm 25 years old.
Yeah, exactly. I actually remember one time because we would meet on Zoom.
Okay.
And I remember one time I was going to hang up on her because I was so through. I was just I didn't want to listen. This is a person that came into my life to help me.
Yeah.
And I did not want to accept her help. I just was just you can help me with other stuff, but you can't help me with
don't talk about that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, goodness, I love her so much for really sticking it through with me. Wow. And because I was hard-headed. I didn't want to, I'm 25, I want to have fun. And then one day I just told her okay, I'm ready to stop. I'm ready to accept the help, And so I went to a 12-step program. And met community, other people who were sober. And it changed my life. Like I stopped like ever since then I haven't drank. But I started also sharing that journey like on Instagram. Like when I was around 30 days sober, because like I had got this little 30-day chip and I was so excited. And then all my friends were like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, is everything good? And so that's kind of how it all started. Yeah.
I want to go a bunch of different places with this. This is good.
Yeah.
So one question I'm gonna ask during that experience, talk about the other things you had to shed because alcohol was gone.
Oh yeah. Everything.
Yeah. It cost me everything.
Everything had to go. It's like everything must go. Like one of those little, you know, signs. Like it was like everything must go.
Yeah. Closed out cell. Yeah.
Friends, certain men, places that I would tolerate. Yeah. Like all these places I would go in DC. Like today I would not go there, honestly. The opinion that I had about myself, like I had to really
that's good.
Yeah. I didn't think I really knew I knew who I was, but I didn't really know how to deal with things. Like I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I didn't know how to deal with feelings. I didn't know how to do boundaries. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like everything had to change. Like my life did a whole like 180 or something, you know, like it just everything changed. But it changed for the better. Like I don't miss anything about like my old life.
Yeah. How difficult, like, so 25, you're kind of early in the game. Like it's not like you've been drinking 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So how, I don't want to say how difficult it was, because anything that you have to stop, you have to get control over is difficult, right?
Yeah.
But what I more so mean is like, as you're building your life, you are still you're still coming into adulthood at 25, right?
Yeah.
And so you are getting control of this thing at an age where like you can live out the rest of your life. Cool.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a part of your life for half of your life, right? Or I'm assuming that.
Well, yeah. Well, I started when I was really young, like in high school, like 14, 15.
Okay, so it was
like a big part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it started with like day drinking or sneaking drinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
With friends in high school, like after school parties. Like yeah. It was not good.
Okay. And then it just bled over into your 20s.
Yes.
And then you just saw this downward spiral.
Yeah.
And then could you be around alcohol and not drink?
Like when I first started,
or by the time you went to the 12-step program.
Oh yeah, I think I was like, I knew that I didn't want to go back to where I used to be, and I knew if alcohol was the culprit, like I just knew like, okay, I'm not gonna drink.
Got it.
And so I would bring my own, like I drink a lot of sparkling water in the beginning, like and fuzzy sodas. So I would bring my own stuff to the cookouts, to parties. I made sure that people knew like, hey, I'm not drinking. Can you have other options? Or people would say like, hey, I have this for you instead.
Right.
So it wasn't hard at all.
That's good.
But I think it was other people who had such a big issue.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
And I don't drink myself, right? And I used to not drink for religious reasons.
Yeah.
And then I grew up and realized like, you're not going to hell because you took a drink or something, right?
Yeah.
However, what I more so never wanted to do was have to control it. Like anything that you start, you got to control, right?
Yeah.
And so my idea was if I don't start it, I don't have to control it.
Yeah.
And so I never started it. The same thing with weed and everything else. Like I just never even. I'm all the homies on the block. I've been with all of them, know all of them. But some of them did time, some of them didn't do all of that. I just didn't want to get involved because I didn't want to have to control it, right? And so it was hard enough trying to control the things I did start, right? Yeah. So I think that like being being at a place where like you're 25 and you have to like gain this self-control back, right?
Yeah.
To where I am, even you have a bottle here, take control initiative, right? It's about taking control again, right?
Yeah.
It feels it can feel foreign to be out of control. And to the point that like you don't even realize you're out of control until you're really out of control.
Yeah. And that was the thing too.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have any friends who were sober.
Mhm.
So unless they were like religious or pregnant.
Yep.
And it was like, it was getting out of control.
Yep.
But it was like other people around me were kind of doing it. So it was just like, okay, but my out of control was just was out of control. And I just knew like if I continued down that path, it was not going to end pretty for me.
Yeah.
Like, it was definitely like I had to take control of my life and say like, if I want change, it means that I have to be disciplined and say no to this.
Yeah. So you're talking about the cost of giving that up and what that looks like, making that change.
Yeah.
Some relationships, right? Some experiences, some places. Let's go a little bit deeper into that. So, when you said people were supportive and they made sure you had something, an option, right? How did you deal with your friends or your family that weren't supportive, that were like, because you always got those people who like, you mean to tell me, who do you think you, right? Well, I know what we were just doing 2 months ago. Like, girl, get out of it, right?
Yeah.
So like, you always got those people who want to keep you where you are to keep them comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Talk a little bit about how, and you don't got to put no names out there, but,
No.
but just talk a little bit about how that made you feel. Was there some were you a little indecisive or like, did it make you second guess or like, let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I had friends who would say, well, are you pregnant? And I had to be like, no, I'm not pregnant. I'm just not drinking.
Right.
And then I had friends who would say, like, for instance, like my 30 days, like I had a friend who say, well, let's just celebrate by drinking. And I'm like, no, that's not
the point. That is the antithesis of
so I'm like, well, I had to really educate some of my friends because they didn't, I had to also kind of give grace. Like some of them just have never been around another, like a young, sober person.
Right.
And I did have to have like a really in-depth talk with one of my friends who, she said that I had like, she was like, well, I don't see why you're doing this because we do the same thing and it's not a problem for me. So like, are you trying to say like, it's a problem for me?
Right.
And I had to have a really in-depth talk with her. Like, it's not like, it doesn't have to be a problem for you, but it was a problem for me.
Right.
And, she didn't see that other side of me when I got home and things were just like not good.
Right.
And like, so I had to really have an in-depth talk to like, just tell her how much it meant to me, that I needed her support. Like we had a sit down and she really understood. And from that point on, she's just been super supportive. But I did have friends who like told me I was doing too much, like not everybody who drinks is an alcoholic. And I'm like, I don't consider myself an alcoholic, but also like, I'm not saying that's the, like, that if you're drinking that it's a problem, like you don't have, I'm not saying that.
Right.
So like this friend, she ended up unfollowing me. Like, so the non-supportive people, I just like whatever, because the support of my friends, my real friends, like my family, like my parents are super supportive. My siblings are super supportive. I just try to like go over where the love is warm and just stay there.
That's smart. That's very, very wise of you.
Yeah.
Because you do always tend to have those people. The moment I want to take a step forward, you look at yourself and say, well, so if that's forward, then what am I behind?
Yeah.
It's like my journey has nothing to do with your journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would have people who, it's funny, we have people get order their drinks at a restaurant or something. I'll be at a group of 8 people or so.
Yeah.
And everybody is waiting to see what I'm drinking. I don't care what you're drinking. Like, what are you worried about? What I want a Sprite. Like, leave me alone. Like,
exactly.
Or like, I love ginger beer.
Me
right?
too. I love ginger beer.
I love ginger beer. I just had a ginger beer. Que gusto.
Yeah.
And so I pull and they see the bottle. Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, will you relax? Why is this such a thing? And so I've definitely been there where it just, it's funny that you have those people around, and sometimes you don't realize it until you take the thing out of the equation. And when you start to look at people without the thing that connected you with the people in the equation, all of a sudden you see a different person. It's like, you're really not that fun to be with, actually.
Exactly. Like the alcohol was how I kind of like tolerated being around you. Yes. And when I realized like, okay, some of these friendships are just not like, they're not growing with me.
Yes.
Then it's just like, okay, I just have to leave them alone.
Yes.
Or the universe kind of like made that decision for me, So it was just like, sayonara, like I'm going to live my life in a way that's healthy for me. Cause it's like sometimes people don't want you to be healthy.
Exactly.
Like I'm like, this is healthy for me. Like this is a big change for my life. Right. So why are you so upset? Even with the drinking thing, like out at a restaurant, like I'm going to order a mocktail, I'm going to order a cute mocktail.
Right.
So like worry about what's in your cup.
Right.
And like, that's that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. Okay. So you're from DC. You are outdoorsy, and you're longboarding, you're riding bikes, and you're sober, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a national television show says, "I want to interview this young girl from DC who's outdoorsy and longboards and whatnot, but who's leading the sobriety charge." Talk a little bit about this. Share whatever you like to share about that.
Yeah. Well, I post my sobriety journey on TikTok and I post it on Instagram.
How do they follow you?
I'm the girl Ryann on TikTok. So that's TheGirlRyann. And then on Instagram, it's girl Ryann, GIRLRYANN.
Got it.
So yeah, on TikTok, I post about my sobriety journey. And one day I just checked on my page and there was a reporter who was like, hey, we're doing a segment for Sober Talk, hashtag Sober Talk. And we would love for you to be a part of it. And I posted my journey on TikTok, not really realizing how much it would like blow up, And when you click on the hashtag Sober Black Women on TikTok, you don't really see that many of us. There's maybe 3 or 4 women who are talking about their sobriety journey. And then when you click on the hashtag sober, which has over 2.2 billion views on TikTok, you don't see any representation other than white faces. So they reached out to me for a different, like diverse, of course, experience. And that was the Today Show. And I just was like, literally, I guess I was like, I don't know, I was shocked. I was like, I can't believe that the Today Show wants to interview me about my sobriety journey. And it was with Savannah Sellers, and it was a great experience. It was very affirming. Like I was just like, I'm doing the right thing. And it, I just wanted there to be some representation because I feel like the sobriety movement, when you think of sobriety, you don't really see young Black women or any Black, it's really hard to see Black people on the sober like journey online. So, so I felt really good about having that representation to be like national and say like, hey, I'm doing this and you can do it too if that's what you want. Yeah.
And I think that, when you talk about there being a lack of representation, I think some of that is cultural. Because we're taught suffer in silence. We're taught never let them see you sweat. We're taught, not to, what goes on in this house stays in this house. Don't you tell nobody else, right? And so it's our culture. It's a part of our culture to not heal openly. Right? And you have to like go against a whole lot of advice that would tell you otherwise. But look at the benefit. Like, look at the people you're helping by just telling your story.
I get so many comments like young women who say like, I want to do this, or, this is my goal, or like, how do you do this? Or like, what ways do you cope instead? Like, or like, I'm on my sobriety journey. I'm 5 days sober. Or either other people who are like, I've been sober for 30 years, like keep up the good work. Like I get an overwhelming amount of love and support by sharing that journey. But yeah, I think like I agree with you. A lot of like our community is like, we have to keep this inside. You don't want, like, you're crazy, like, you know, or, you know, some word to describe, you know, addictions. Like we don't talk about like, okay, somebody in our family has an addiction and how can we help this person? So yeah, there's just a lot of like hiding, and I was like, I don't want to hide. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that, you know, also when you're talking about how these things kind of arise, right? So here comes the Today Show. They reach out to you.
Yeah.
But if you had not dared to take the step forward and take control, right? Which I can go a whole nother way with this. Like, you know, people respond to you once you came in control, right? There's something about when you have the control that you can actually start to dictate the next steps, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, they reach out to you based on this bodacious, this audacious move that you made to actually bet on yourself and say, I'm going to take control of my life and I'm going to take this step forward. And then here comes a national show that says, we want to chronicle your journey moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And then how much did that affect your network after the show? Like your TikTok followers, and was there an uptick in traction?
Well, you know, it wasn't an uptick on TikTok.
Okay.
Because there was like a story that came out about TikTok and how like who gets pushed and how the people who work at TikTok are the ones who are pushing it.
Right.
So I think from Black creators and white creators, white creators get pushed the most.
Right.
And I do have like a nice following on there, but it didn't really like blow up.
Okay.
But I did have like some comments who were like, yeah, like, I just saw you on the Today Show.
Yeah.
And I did actually have, I did a podcast with Elizabeth Vargas, who has Partnership to End Addiction. And so I did a podcast with her because she saw the Today Show. So I did get a network in other ways rather than like a more following.
Directly. Yeah. Okay. Now, how did you, what did you start to use instead of alcohol? Like how did you begin to form new habits outside of the drinking? How did you redesign or reimagine your life?
Well, I had to learn. I'm still learning new ways to cope because what used to work before just does not work anymore.
Okay. So
therapy has been a big help.
Okay.
And also like trying to manage my social anxiety when I go out, like to these networking events or like parties or something. It's still a learning process. Like I'm trying to make sure, like, because before I would like have alcohol to like kind of let loose.
A buffer. Yep.
Yeah. But now I'm like, I actually have to show up as myself, you know, like I'm like, this is it for me. Like I don't like, I'm like raw dog in life. I need to be who I am.
Right.
So like a big thing that has been helpful for me too is like kind of naming my feelings. Like if I'm anxious, if I'm sad, if I'm angry, if I'm happy, like naming some of that stuff. Talking to friends has been super helpful. Like if I'm about to go to an event, sometimes I'll call a friend, like I'm like super nervous, I'm anxious, I'll call my parents. So, you know, and then also just being outside has been really helpful for my mental health, resting, making sure that I'm nourishing myself, making sure I'm feeding myself. All of that has been super. And even though it's kind of like small, it's really big in you know, the grand scheme of things. Like, am I taking care of myself today?
Right.
And I think that's something that I never really looked at before. Like, how am I taking care of myself? How am I taking care of my mental health? So I'm trying to learn still, like, what are ways that I can manage without alcohol that are, you know, in a big alcohol world.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Like going to concerts sober.
comedy shows,
all that stuff. Like I had to do all those first.
Yeah.
And it was a little awkward for me at first, but I had
weddings.
Weddings, sober weddings, which I actually just got invited to a sober wedding, so going to restaurants and having mocktails instead. All of that has been helpful, but it takes practicing, doing the work.
Absolutely. So we one of the things New Voices is in place because it serves as a megaphone for individuals who have endured transformational or pivotal instances in their life.
Yeah.
And so one of the questions I always ask our guests is like, walk us through one of your darkest nights. Like, this is a period of my life, and it can be sobriety connected or not sobriety connected, but where you just were at a low point and you didn't know how to navigate through it.
Yeah.
How did you find the resolve, and then how did you come up out of there? Like, what did you do to create your path leading out?
Well, I think something that was dark for me was losing my job in October.
Okay.
And I haven't had like a steady income since then. And thankfully things have just been happening, but I was, one, jobless, away from home, away from family, away from friends, like my friends back in DC, and I'm like here in Oklahoma. And then it was winter time, so it's not like I could really be outside, going into the new year, still like not really happy with things. So I think that was something that it's just like I was a little down about it. Like I didn't have that support system that I usually had to lean on, and didn't have just trying to figure out, okay, where is money going to come from? That was kind of hard for me too. Even though I actually just got a job here in Tulsa. I think that was last month.
Right.
And so I think how I came out of that is therapy. I'm just a big, I feel like that's just something that has just been monumental in my life.
Nice.
Like therapy, and also staying the course. Before I would just drink over that stuff. Okay, I don't have a job. Okay, I'm not with friends. I'm not with family.
Right.
But I would do that subconsciously. I didn't think that I was doing that. I wouldn't say okay, I'm going to go have a drink because I don't have a job. I would just be okay, well, nothing else for me to do. So I had to learn ways to manage sadness and loneliness.
Was that difficult navigating that through that period?
Yeah,
without alcohol?
Yeah. It was. It was really hard.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, online, of course, I talk about the great things, but when I'm feeling sad and lonely and I didn't have physical intimacy from my family, and friends, it was hard to navigate that. I was very sad. But therapy helped, journaling helped, just having a good cry helped. And just telling myself, if I go back and drink over this, nothing's gonna change besides, hurting myself. I was so used to hurting myself. I was always the person, when things would go wrong, I would blame it on myself. I would hurt myself, and having to change that to say, I can't hurt myself anymore. I have to start learning how to love myself through all of these emotions. And how can I learn to love myself? What do I need to bring some joy in my life? Music was a good help. Listen to Marvin Gaye. I'm feeling, Barry White. Okay, just trying to feel better.
Right.
So yeah, and I think I pulled myself out of that by just taking it a day at a time. I think before I would just want easy fix. I just want to feel better today.
Right.
I need to feel better now. And that's what alcohol gave me. It gave me that instant dopamine.
Right.
And trying to find dopamine in other ways.
Things,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so pulling myself out of that was just doing the work every day. And that's, I don't know. I think that's just how, and I feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other things that we always cover is, how do you and how have you held on to hope throughout all that you've endured in your life so far, good and bad. Like, it's not, enduring something doesn't just mean it was bad. You can endure good times too, right?
Yeah.
And so how have you endured, how have you held on to hope throughout life and throughout the ebbs and flows of what life has presented?
Well, recently, I think after I kind of founded RYS, which is Radiate Your Sobriety.
I love it.
Me too. I love it too.
Yeah.
I think I've held on to hope by wanting to help other people through this journey.
Nice.
I want people to know that sobriety doesn't have to be that dark 12-step program, which didn't work for me after a year. I was just kind of this isn't going to work. But knowing that you can have a different way of living and things can be done without alcohol. You can still have fun. You can still enjoy your life. You can still have good connections. And so I think I've held on to that hope by other people, having faith in me, sending me all these amazing messages and the overwhelming support and love that I get. I think that's how I have, other people have been super helpful for me.
Good.
So community and love and self-love and community care has just been something that has been super helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So call to action. How can people reach you? I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier your Instagram, but and your TikTok. How can people reach you? And then what's some final thought for our listeners?
How people can reach me, I have Girl Ryann on Instagram, the Girl Ryann on TikTok, and then now I have Radiate Your Sobriety on Instagram, and I host sober events, and so you can follow me there and learn about sober events that I'm gonna do, and then I'm planning to do some here in Tulsa. What was the other question you said?
And then what's the final word that you would leave for our listeners? You can think about it. He will cut it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Final word. I don't know. I'm gonna think.
Okay. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about RYS.
Okay.
Is it out yet? When will it launch? And how will people be able to engage it?
Yeah. Well, it's not out yet.
Okay.
But I am doing product market research.
Okay, good.
I just want to find out what people want. Radiate Your Sobriety, which is RYS. I want people to be able to have community, and I want it to be culturally sensitive, BIPOC centered, because in those 12-step programs, they haven't been updated since the rules have not been updated since 1939. And so you can imagine how Black folks are feeling in these spaces. And so a lot of those programs don't allow you to talk about race, sex, oppression, and how that relates to your addictions.
Which that could be why you're drinking.
Exactly.
It could be 80% of the reason I'm drinking.
And that's the truth.
Right.
It's not culturally competent at
Right,
all.
right.
And I want RYS to be something that is culturally competent, so that people who are, feeling like a lot of my drinking or addictions are from race, sex, religion, trauma, and there needs to be a safe space to talk about that.
Yeah.
And then I also want it to be something where people can find non-alcoholic events in their area. How can I go to this restaurant and do they have mocktails here? Is there a non-alcoholic event in my area? Are there people who want to be social? Because I want it to be a social thing for people to really come together and have a good time. So right now I'm just having sober events. I just had one in DC at DC's first non-alcoholic bar.
Nice.
And those are popping up all over.
I've been hearing about that concept all over. Yeah.
And I would love to have my own too, a cool non-alcoholic bar. And I think some people are like, what's the point of that? And they had
it's so short-sighted.
Yeah, people are like, what's the point of that? Like, why do you need to drink mock? It's like the same reason why it's like you're vegan and you want dairy-free cheese.
Right.
Like, it's sort of like I want something else, you know, something that's not gonna make me feel bad.
Right.
So Binge Bar, the owner, she's so sweet. I hosted a smudge stick lab there, and that is like where you put herbs and eucalyptus together, and you can like just like light it and have it in your own like home or wherever, and just have good energy and good vibes. And that was like a sold out event, and I felt honored to do that in DC because like that's my hometown.
That's home, yeah.
And the amount of support that I had, and I was just like, you know what, I want to do more stuff like this. So yeah, RYS is a place where people can come who want to feel supported and want to be in a place where it's like we can be open and honest about our struggles, and it doesn't have to be like hidden behind some 12-step program that doesn't allow you to be who you are. So basically, like, I just want to redefine how sobriety is viewed and like here, you know?
Nice. And that will be through an app?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be an app.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, right now just doing product market research, but I am looking for like a UX designer. So if anybody is like out there, would love to connect and talk and see how that can go.
When do you think it'll be ready to launch? You know?
I'm not sure because I do need some funding too. So
we'll ask for what you need. This is
you
never know.
I need funding.
Yes,
I need some coin.
Okay.
So however, you know, if someone's listening, like, you know, I would love to connect to talk more about how I can get some funding for that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Ryann, any final words for our listeners?
Yeah. Whatever it is that you want to do, that you can see yourself doing, it's possible. The same way that I was able to just say, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. It required a different version of myself. And that version of yourself can be possible.
Yeah.
It just takes that work and commitment. And I became mentally stronger by doing that, by giving up alcohol. And things in your life can be radiated. You can have, you know, an amazing time. But you do have to put the work in for yourself.
Absolutely.
To get there. So yeah. And just, you know, try to do it.
That's good. That's good. We have a saying in New You to turn impossible into I'm possible.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where that's thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. You all have heard another edition of New Voices. We're so glad to have Ryann here, and we're so glad that you were able to listen. Be safe, and see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of New Voices. Visit our website at www.newutulsa.com. That is NEWU Tulsa.com. Follow us on social media at New You Tulsa on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And a special thank you to our producer, Jesse Ulrich. If you're looking for self-improvement, join our free cohorts for personal and professional development opportunities. New You is a way for diverse talent to imagine, discover, and actualize a 2.0 version of yourself. Bring your future into focus.